yes, I'm just doing the flip through for the Logic of English Foundations guide. So Foundations with Logic of English, it's a full curriculum that covers spelling and phonemic awareness and handwriting as well. And in the bundle that you'd get if you were ordering the first set, you would get these, which I'll go through as to what they are. So Foundations runs from Foundations A through to Foundations D. So A would be the one that you'd start off with, and it's aimed at kids around about age 4 to 7. So kids who are really starting out with learning their letter sounds and how to form letters and things like that. But if you did have a younger child who was ready to and really keen to start learning their letters and things, then you could still use it. The same as if you had an older child who was maybe struggling with letter formation, or who maybe has some gaps that they need help with, then you would still be fine using this to just fill those gaps and get those foundations really solid. So these are some of the things that would come. So you've got the teacher's manual, then you have the student workbook, you get a hardback book called Doodling Dragons, the basic phonogram flashcards, which would be used not just for level A, but throughout the foundations, A straight through to D, and the games tiles, which look like this. And if you were choosing to do print letter forming or manuscripts, then you would have the manuscript tactile cards, and then you've got these 2 decks of games cards. So this is the blue book face, and then you've got red manuscripts, and they'll make a bit more sense as we go through the flip through. So if I just get these out the way, a couple of other things that would come as the part of the whole set would be the whiteboard. So the Logic of English whiteboard, you've got this first, as is kind of, you can see as has had quite a bit of use, but you get the base, mid and top line, and this is to help with forming the letters and knowing where on the line the different parts of the letter would sit. And you've got this quite large part at the front, and then on the back it's smaller. So as they start to progress with their letter formation, they're starting to be able to form letters more like in smaller size, then they would be able to flip and use this. But this comes with the kit if you were buying the whole bundle as one thing. And then you also get the phonogram and spelling rules. So you can get these as a hard copy. I've printed mine. So this is a PDF I just laminated. And they will go through the different spelling rules and phonogram charts. And then you also get the handwriting chart, so the quick reference guide, and it would break down the different strokes that are used to form the letter. So it breaks it down into really small parts. Rather than just teaching the letter as a whole letter to begin with, it teaches the strokes that form those letters to help make sure that they get that really solidly. So if I move these, then we can go through the actual books and see what's inside. So starting with the teacher's manual. So this is a scripted curriculum, and what I mean by that is that it literally will say in the lessons what to say. So you don't have to worry about how am I going to explain this to my child, how would I word this so that they get it. It's literally you follow what is written here in the regular print, and then where it's bold and in italics, that's to give space for the answers that your child would give. So just to kind of throw that out there from the beginning. So it starts off with a supplies list. So these are all the things that you would need. And so you've got the teacher's manual, student workbook, basic phonogram flashcards, the handwriting tactile cards, which we have the manuscript ones. The cursive ones, I believe, are green. Manuscript is in red. Then you've got the quick reference charts. That was the one of the PDFs that I showed, but you can get the printed copy and get it shipped over, or just get the PDF and print it and laminate it. Then you've got the 2 decks of the games cards, the letter tiles, and the spelling analysis, quick reference. Doodling Dragons is the book, and the student whiteboard. And then these are things that you'd have around your house most likely. So whiteboard markers, eraser, crayons, glue, scissors. There are also songs that help kids to learn the different sounds that letters make, and those are available either directly from the website, or you can get them on places like iTunes, Spotify, I think Amazon Music as well. For the lessons, you can break them down. So I'll show you quickly one lesson and how that's structured. So here's lesson 1. It will show you at the beginning of each lesson. They're all, the pages are structured in the same way throughout, but it will show you at the beginning what skills are being focused on for phonemic awareness, for handwriting. As you go through the curriculum, it will start to add more things as they're starting to, like you can see here, by the time you get to lesson 26, it's focusing on more skills because they're progressing, they're building on what they've learned before, and so it will add gradually as you go through. But it will start by showing you a summary of what's being covered in that lesson and what materials that you need and any optional materials. Then and then it's broken down into sections. So here it will say, for example, this is what's being covered for phonemic awareness. Then it will have that as a heading, phonemic awareness, and then the lesson itself. And then you've got the handwriting part. So this is all lesson 1, which looks like quite a lot, but the way that you can do it, and it's very flexible to kind of suit whatever the learning, the wherever your child is at. So my children, I used it for them because they've both got difficulties with like different learning difficulties, and their attention span's really short. So I would never sit and go through a whole lesson in one go, and it's not designed for you to have to do that. And that's not really the intention of it either. So you break it down. So for example, we would cover phonemic awareness and do this section, and then that would be it for that day. And then the next day I might just do a quick review on what we covered the day before, and then move on to the next part, which would be the compound words in this case, and then leave it there. And then the next day we would start the handwriting section, and just like that, just breaking it down so that it's in chunks that they can manage and that they're okay to do, so that it's not overwhelming. So how long the lessons take? Well, it depends really on your child. So although it gives an idea here, again, everything is going to be based around your particular child or the children that you're using this curriculum with. At the end of every 5 lessons, they have an assessment. And that just gives plenty of space for being able to review before moving on to the next thing. So it's not really overwhelming or moving on too fast. You can see if they've grasped it or not. So if we're looking at the scope and sequence, you can see lessons 1 to lesson 5, then there's an assessment. Lesson 6 through to lesson 10, then there's an assessment, and it goes like that throughout the whole book. And there's around 40 lessons for the whole of level 1. And then at the end, you have a final assessment. So every 5 lessons, there's then an assessment and review section. Speech tips are included with regards to pronouncing words, how to break it down. It really is quite a kinesthetic, multisensory curriculum. So when it comes to pronouncing the letter sounds, it will go into things like voiced and unvoiced sounds, and how they feel the breath coming out of their mouth, if they're saying things like b or p or h and things like that. So it really is multisensory, and this is part of what they'll be covering with things like speech tips, and that just helps with articulation. Then you've got your spelling analysis, the Dueling Dragon songs, and then the different terms that are used. Because, say, for example, if someone's new to, I know, for example, when I was new to homeschooling, I did not know CBC word. I knew the words, but I didn't know the terms and things like phonogram and digraph and all this kind of thing. So it does break it down so that you can understand what terminology is being used and feel confident then using this curriculum with your children if those terms are unfamiliar. The scope and sequence is going to break down for each lesson what's being covered. So you've got the lessons down on the left, and then across the top you've got what different areas are being covered. There's not a huge amount of vocabulary and composition in level 1 because it's at such an early stage, but as you would progress through the different levels of the curriculum, you would see more through here. Comprehension and fluency it's not in the sense of reading comprehension with this. It's more understanding the phrase. So here, demonstrate understanding of a phrase the student has independently decoded. So it's understanding and comprehending what's being taught and being fluent and confident with demonstrating what they've learned. And that's what they're looking at when it says comprehension and fluency rather than reading comprehension. So yeah, you'd have phonemic awareness, systematic phonics, cursive or manuscript, depending on which one you choose, spelling, comprehension and fluency, and vocabulary and composition. And then again, so each lesson here in the scope and sequence, you can see exactly what's being covered throughout as you work your way through. And you can see as you're going through it, more and more things are being added in, it's being built up on and increasing as you're working through the curriculum. Okay. Then we get to this part. So phonograms, this is a phonogram chart basically. So it's looking at the letters of the alphabet and the sounds that each letter makes. So the phonogram just means like the sounds made by each letter. So letter A, for example, is showing that there are 3 sounds that it can make: a, and o, like mat, table, and father. And so you can look through this and get an idea of the different sounds made. And the basic phonogram cards will also have these on the cards. So as you're working through, you will be using these. And for example, letter A, when you turn it over, it has the different phonograms for that letter, so that you're teaching your child that this letter A makes these different sounds, and then it has the symbols to use to represent the different sound types. So you've got the short vowel symbol, the long vowel symbol, which is like a dash. The short vowel, we call it smiley face because it looks like a smile. And then you've got the double dots, which is that kind of sound, like a lazy vowel sound. So a, and you'd be using these throughout the curriculum with your children to get them to really get solid on knowing the different sounds that each letter makes and how you would use those in a word. And then here is the materials needed. So again, breaking it down lesson by lesson so you can see ahead, it's going to let you know which materials you need and which are optional materials that you can choose to use or not. So for example, lesson 1, you'd need the whiteboard, the tactile card for either the cursive or the manuscript. And then going down, again, it's going to start adding things as you go through. So it starts off really, really basic, and then it will start to add a few more things as you go through, because it's getting more, not complex exactly, but it's progressing. Okay. So then you'll get to this point, Common Core Standards. This, we don't really use, if you're UK based, we don't really use this, but in the US, they would be more inclined to be using things like Common Core, which I guess the equivalent over here in the UK would be if you were on Twinkle, for example, and you were looking at what is covered in that year group, with regards to whatever the topic is, then that's what this is referring to for children who are in the US. So for kindergarten reading foundational skills, this is what it's covering. It's not, I don't believe that this curriculum is a Common Core curriculum that covers all the things, but it's just letting you know as the parent what of the Common Core standards is being covered and where in the curriculum they're being covered. So which pages of which lessons, and for which grade level. But again, we wouldn't really use that here in the UK, but the equivalent would be, I guess, if you were on Twinkle and you wanted to kind of gauge an idea of whereabouts your child's at with regards to the national curriculum. So you could then kind of line the two up alongside each other and see what's being covered and where. So more on the Common Core standards, and then again, this you get straight into the lessons, and you get these really these boxes that pop up throughout, all the way through. Sorry, someone outside. All the way through the book. So teachers' tips and multi-sensory fun, things you can do to help your child to really kind of incorporate different multi-sensory aspects with learning these things, different books that you can use and read, which strokes you're practicing, because it does break it down into the strokes. Here, where you see these headings here in the middle, it's referring to the student handbook. So where it says, for example, optional handwriting chart 1.2, page 2. So if you were looking at the student book, it's saying, it's referring to this. So 1.2, optional handwriting chart, page 2. So these are referring to the student handbooks. You can know which page it's talking about that you need to be looking at or have your child working on. And yeah, so that's basically the layout of the guide, the teacher's manual. When you come to the assessment stage, it's color coded. So the assessment stages are highlighted in this dark blue. And then again, it's going to break down really clearly what area is focusing on, what skill within those areas that it's assessing, and the level of mastery. So if it says, so these 1 and 2s will probably not make much sense to begin with, but what it means is if it says 1, then the expectation by the time they reach this assessment stage is that they have mastered the things that are labeled as 1. And those that are labeled as 2, it's to show that they would be familiar, or the expectation is that they are familiar with these things. They may not have mastered them, but they are familiar with these things and they're working towards mastery. So this is how the assessments stages look, and it breaks it down like this. Again, the assessments are in their handbook as well, and it's going to show you which page. So page 12. So page 12, assessment 1, A1. So A1, assessment A, page 12, and it's blending 1-syllable words, 1-syllable words. So this is what they'd be working on for this section of their assessment, and then so on. Handwriting, page 13. A2 for handwriting, it's where they're practicing their lines and strokes that they've been learning. So it's very clearly laid out, and that's really how it runs throughout the whole of the teacher's guide. So just so you can get an idea of how that looks. So if you're, again, just to say, if you're using the cursive, if you're choosing to teach your children writing in cursive, then you'd only need to focus on the green, and you wouldn't need to really focus on the part that's for the manuscript or the print, just focusing on the cursive. And again, it's going to show you the strokes for each, because they would be different if you're using cursive writing as opposed to using manuscript writing. the strokes used to form those letters are going to be different. And it starts off with just the strokes that form the letter, and it will build up until you're eventually forming the letters. Then it will build up to the point where you are then forming words. So here now, by the time you get to lesson 5, you've learned the different strokes that are used to form the letter A. And then by the time you get here, you're forming different letters together. So then you're going to build up to forming words by towards the end of the book. If I can find an example. So here. So then here, by the time you get to this point, this is lesson 22, you're forming words. So either in the cursive style or in the manuscript style. So it really breaks it down into small chunks to make sure that they master each bit before moving on to the next part. Okay, and so that is the teacher's guide. And moving on to the student workbook, again, you kind of got a bit of a glimpse, but one thing I would say, so just kind of give you a quick flip through of what that looks like. So you do have the guidelines for the writing, the base, mid and top line. As you're going through the book, they've got different levels. You've got the larger ones. If maybe your child is just starting with letter formations, they need the bigger lines, more space. Then as they're, or if it's maybe somebody who is, they are maybe a bit further ahead with writing, but they still struggle a little bit. You've got different sizes. They might be doing it smaller. They might be struggling with placement. So they have letters up here and down here and off the line. And so you'd use just whatever size of the handwriting guides, the lines would be for where your child is at. You don't have to use them all. So, yep. So it's going to do things like matching phonograms, some of the activities. So you'd look at the book face font and then the manuscript font, and you'd be matching them. So if you're reading a book, it looks different to how you'd write it. So recognizing that this is the same as this is the same as this, and doing activities like that. There's different games as well. There are quite a lot of games, a lot of learning through play. Like I say, it's very hands-on. There's things you can do up and moving around, which my kids need. So this kind of incorporates that. Again, like I said, it's multisensory. There's these that you can cut out and laminate and use as well. So there's quite a few things. Now, when it comes to the readers, for levels B through to level D, the readers are separate books. But for level A, the readers are in the back. So in the back of the children's workbook. So here. So this is reader 1. And you just pull these out and then you kind of just assemble them your own. And they're on your own. And they are going to be more focusing on CVC words. So consonant, vowel, consonant words. With activities and things they can do, and just learning to blend words and sound them out and things like that. So just to give you an idea what that looks like. Okay, so these are in the back. But like I said, from level B onwards, they're separate books that you would buy in addition to the student workbook, etc. So the Doodling Dragons book, this is different. So this isn't a reader. You might be thinking, well, why is there a book? This isn't a reader. This is more just going through the different sounds that the letters make. So, for example, A. And then it will show you the different sounds A makes, and then examples of that. And this is where the songs come in, because there are songs that accompany this that are quite fun and you can listen to alongside. We didn't personally use the songs, but I've heard them, and you can find a couple of samples of them on YouTube. So you can see an idea, you can get an idea of what they're like, but you can get them directly from the Logic of English website, or also on, like I said, iTunes, Spotify, Amazon Music, and different music platforms like that. And then you'd have the songs to go along with this. So this book is literally just focusing on the sounds that each letter makes and using examples of those different sounds. Like for C, you'd have K and S. So like for cards, and for circus. Yep, so that's what the Doodling Dragons book is for. So moving on to the tactile cards. So these four are used for forming the letters, showing what they're like. They are textured, so they're like sandpaper, and it's good for your child to be able to just feel the letters and follow the shape. So you build that muscle memory of, you know, how that letter is formed. And it includes the capital letters, the lowercase letters, so they can see actually, well, this would be smaller, whereas the uppercase would be bigger movement. So you've got the lowercase letters, and then you've also got the individual strokes that would form the letters. So like this, the swing stroke, so the and showing which directions you're going to be going, like this, going like this. So it has the capital letters, the strokes that form the letters, the lowercase letters, and then numbers as well. So those are the tactile cards. And again, so for the manuscript, these are red. For if you're using the cursive set, then I believe that they are green. Then the next set of things that come with it are games cards. So you've got the blue book face games cards, and then you've also got, if I can find where I just put it down, the red ones as well. There's two sets. These will be used for the games. So you've got the letter tiles as well. So these are all for games that you would use these for. So here they are. So these are the red manuscript, and then the blue book face. And you would use these again throughout, just to help with building confidence with recognizing how the letters would look in, for example, fonts printed in books, and how they would look in handwritten style. And then they've got these games that you would use. So this is called a slap card, because there's a game called Slap It. It's a bit like Snap. So how you'd play Slap It, for example, you'd have, you know, the children would turn over a card, and then they would sound out the sounds that these two letters would make, and then keep turning over cards, and then if someone then turns over a slap card, the first person to slap the pile gets the cards. So it's a bit like Snap in a way. And then so there's multiple games that these cards would be used for, just to help with making learning fun, really, and solidifying what they're learning. I think there's a game called Rotten Eggs as well, where you would have the cards in a bag, and then you pull out the card, sound it out, and if you pull out, and you keep the card if you sound it out correctly, but then if you pull out a rotten egg, then you lose all your cards. So things like that, just to make it fun. So that's what these are for. And then there's games that would use these games tiles as well, and they're also pretty handy for if you were to break them up and put like little Velcro dots or little magnets strips on the back, for helping just with physically forming out letters as well, forming out words, sorry. So physically spelling out words, you could use these to help with that. So that's it. So I hope you found that really helpful. I do believe that the creator of this particular curriculum, she had children who I think were dyslexic, and that she was struggling with finding resources that really helped her child and kind of met their needs, and that's why she created this. So do double check that, don't quote me on that, but I do think I read that about the creator when I was looking into this resource, and that's why I actually bought it for my kids, because of their different learning difficulties and, you know, struggling with letter formation and letter reversal and all these different things, which is, you know, why it's quite unique in some of the aspects that it has in it, and the way that it breaks things right down as well. I found it was super, super helpful for my kids when we started using this. And so I hope that that's been helpful, and I'll see you next time.